And now we turn to CBS News White House reporter Willie Inman joining us from St. Croix, where President Biden is currently on vacation. How are the president and first lady responding to the death of Jimmy Carter?
Hey there, Natalie. Good to be with you from St. Croix. President Biden and the First Lady sent out a lengthy statement about the life of Jimmy Carter. I want to bring a part of that statement for our viewers. He said, with his compassion and moral clarity, he worked to eradicate disease, forge peace, advance civil rights and human rights, promote free and fair elections, house the homeless, and always advocate for the least of us. He saved lives. He saved, lifted, and changed the lives of people all across the globe. That statement, at least part of it, coming from President Biden and the First Lady. They also mentioned in this statement that they've known Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter for some 6 decades. This was a long relationship. Clearly, the president is very close to former President Carter. He attended Rosalind Carter's memorial service last year. The First Lady attended as well. That was perhaps the last time they were able to see each other. It was early on in the Biden administration during President Biden's presidency, where both he and the First Lady went down to Georgia to see both Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter and take that famous picture with all 4 of them together. So certainly a lengthy relationship between President Biden, the current president, and former President Jimmy Carter as we celebrate his life and long-lasting legacy, Natalie.
And Willie, President Biden said he will hold an official state funeral in Washington, D.C. What will that look like?
Yeah, there's a lot of pomp and circumstance that comes with holding an official state funeral for a leader like Jimmy Carter, like a former president. Now, President Biden has already officially begun that process with releasing the statement. As Skylar Henry pointed out, my colleague, there'll be part of this that will take place in Georgia, but a huge part of it will also take place in Washington, D.C., where you oftentimes will see the current president, the First Lady, and former presidents, former First Ladies, all in attendance. There is certainly a lengthy list of things to do, and it'll be a days-long process. We don't yet know the date of that state funeral, when it will be held, but we certainly know that part of it will take place in Washington, D.C. Natalie.
And Willie, also can you tell us about his plans for his burial?
Yeah, part of that will include the former president. One of the wishes that we're certainly anticipating is that he's buried next to his wife. We know that he is from Plains. He's a son of Georgia, a son of Plains, Georgia. So that will perhaps likely be his final resting place. We know that part of the land there where Rosalind Carter is buried was donated to the National Park Service. So making it a historic site, a place that people can really just go and visit and take solace in the lasting legacy that he's had on the state of Georgia, a place that I know very well. Being from Georgia, he is much beloved in my home state, down there in the Peach State. So certainly we anticipate all of this process will begin in the coming days. We'll find out more details, not only from the family, but from the administration as well, that has to really just plan not only this state funeral, but the inauguration for President-elect Trump as well. So part of those services taking place in D.C., but much of it will really just go home to where Jimmy Carter's from, and that will indeed be Plains, Georgia, Natalie.
And Willie, as you were there in St. Croix, we can hear the waves behind you. Sounds very serene. President Biden wrapping up his time in office. What can we expect from him in the days ahead?
Yeah, well, the president's here. This is a place that he knows very well. He spends oftentimes a part of the holidays here with his family vacationing. This is his final vacation with his family as president. There's certainly a lengthy list of things that the president has on his to-do list, sending out more aid for Ukraine. The president will likely try to do that before January 20th when the president-elect takes office. On top of that, there are more pardons and commutations that the president will likely give out. We did get some news recently about student aid. That is something that people have really kept their eye on, especially when it comes to those public student loan forgiveness. That's certainly something that the Biden administration has tried to do. No word on if there'll be any more large-scale student loan forgiveness, but the president the Department of Education, I should say, did that just a few days ago. And one other thing I wanted to also mention, Natalie, is the president will travel to Italy to see the Pope. This is something that the president has close to his heart. He is a devout Catholic. He goes to church essentially every week. We saw him attend church yesterday where he made some comments, gave some news about the Azerbaijan air crash. He was asked whether or not Putin is to blame for that crash. The president said he had to talk with his team and be briefed on that situation. But we certainly anticipate that will be a big trip for the president to meet with the Pope and other Italian leaders, of course. But a large focus of that trip in early January will be that meeting between him and the Pope there in Vatican City, Natalie.
Well, Willie, thank you so much for joining us from St. Croix.